Hi, Ozzy here. Recently in videos and hangouts where people have been discussing the question of empirical knowledge with presuppositionalists, I've noticed people on various sides of these issues struggling with the terms truth and reality, especially as these terms are used by presuppositionalist apologists who claim to hold to a correspondence theory of truth. For instance, one will sometimes hear a presuppositionalist say something to the effect that truth is that which corresponds to reality, and reality is that which corresponds to the mind of God. Now, one doesn't have to believe in a God, or that reality reflects the mind of a God, to hold to the correspondence theory of truth. It has nothing to do with theism. Correspondence theory just states that truth implies a correspondence with reality. In fact, most of us are tacit or naive correspondence theorists. This is just a short video to clarify something about the correspondence theory of truth and what it implies about the meaning of the words truth and reality with respect to beliefs and knowledge claims. Presuppositionalists, especially of the Seitan-Bruggen-Cake variety, have a tendency in these discussions to use the words truth and reality interchangeably, a fact that many have noticed is rather suspicious, inconsistent, equivocal, and so leads to a certain semantic confusions and ground shifting in these discussions. Under a recent video, a fellow YouTuber was thinking out loud and working to sort through some of the semantic muddle that pollutes these conversations between presuppositionalists and those they interact with. I posted a supportive comment under that video where I made the point that reality is not truth. Reality is that which is the case, whatever the case happens to be, whether anyone knows it, believes it, or takes it to be true or not. Indeed, reality is the word we use to distinguish between when we mean that which is the case, or the way things actually are, in contrast to what we perceive or believe or experience about reality. It's analogous to the distinction between the map and the territory which a map attempts to refer to or describe. This is a distinction we all tacitly make, and it's why we can say of a proposition, such as this is a mug, that it can be true or false. And it's why we can say of a belief in that proposition that the belief is true or false. But we can't say of the mug itself that it is true or false. If someone pointed to a mug and said, "The mug is true," it would be puzzling, bordering on complete nonsense. We'd have to construe that figuratively or as some sort of shorthand for something. Construed literally, it makes no sense. To say the mug is true, it's not even a description of reality. Objects aren't true or false. Reality isn't true or false. Reality is what we're trying to refer to or describe when we express constative propositions, that is, propositions which seek to describe states of affairs. The sentence, "the mug is true," doesn't make sense because it doesn't describe some way that reality is or could be. It doesn't express a proposition which could be true or false. It describes no state of affairs. Mugs aren't true or false. No object of reality is true or false. No state of affairs is itself true or false. Propositions describing states of affairs, those can be true or false. So, reality isn't true. Reality is just reality. It's just whatever is the case. And according to the correspondence theory of truth, truths are propositions that refer to and reflect reality, while falsehoods are propositions which misdescribe reality. And again, reality is not one's perception of reality. One's perception of reality, or experience of reality, or beliefs about reality are not reality itself. We all have different perceptions of reality by which we navigate through life, but that perception of reality or experience of reality isn't reality itself, any more than one's map is the territory. Reality is the word we use to describe that about which we have experiences, perceptions, and beliefs. It's why we have words such as belief, perception, mental model, representation, even worldview in the first place, to distinguish all of those things from whatever's actually the case. It's a fundamental epistemological and metaphysical distinction most of us take for granted. If we didn't make this analytical distinction between reality and perception of reality, if what we perceived just was reality, if we defined reality that way, you literally could never be mistaken about reality. If it were the case that what you perceived, experienced, and believed actually constituted reality, you literally could not be mistaken ever about any of your beliefs. It would be a contradiction to say, I was mistaken about my belief, or to say, I misperceived such and such a thing, because your beliefs and your perceptions would constitute reality. So, if like most people, you think your beliefs can be mistaken, if you think you can misperceive things or have false beliefs, then you are positing states of affairs, a way that things are, an actuality, apart from your map or model of reality, to which your map or model refers. So when people say, well, in my reality, such and such, or, well, that's according to your reality, such and such, that's just a kind of sloppy shorthand for perception or beliefs about reality. And this, by the way, is why when someone challenges some claim you make by asking, according to whose reality is that true, or how do you know which reality you're in, they're equivocating, talking about your perception while trying to ask about how you establish that your perception or model of reality genuinely corresponds to reality. In a more recent video, yet another YouTuber highlighted the analytic distinction between truth and reality, and someone posted a comment under that video suggesting that distinguishing between truth and reality was a kind of sophistry. This person wrote, and I'm quoting, "This is nothing more than semantical philosophizing. Truth is that which corresponds to reality. It is that which is the case. What is? It is synonymous with reality. Semantics around that by Ozymandias Ramses II and the Global Atheism, who made the video, by the way, don't change that for a second." End quote. So this person, who's not a presuppositionalist, by the way, is arguing that truth and reality are synonymous, mean the same thing. And here's my response to that. There's no sophistry here. Under the correspondence theory of truth, one must distinguish between truth and reality, because according to the correspondence theory of truth, there have to be two different things between which there is this correspondence. They cannot be identical with each other. It's a correspondence between propositions, expressed as statements, sentences, or beliefs, on one hand, and reality on the other. Propositions are true or false, not reality. To say that the proposition expressed in a statement, sentence, or belief corresponds with reality is precisely to say that it describes reality, not that it's identical with reality. The proposition, "This is a mug," is true or false. But this thing here, the thing that the proposition refers to, the mug, that's not a proposition. It's a mug. And it can't be true or false. It just is. And its existence or non-existence is what makes a proposition true or false. But it isn't itself true or false. The temptation that people feel to literally identify and equate truth and reality arises from the fact that truth has, as its intentional object, that is, the thing it tries to be about, a correct description of reality. Truth isn't reality, but it's about or refers to reality. As such, we sometimes, in some contexts, use the word reality as a cognate term, a substitute term for truth, such as when we say, the reality of the matter is such and such, or the reality of the matter is very different than what you think it is. What we're really expressing when we say things like that is the truth of the matter is such and such. It's a perfectly fine way to speak, but one must take care not to be bewitched by language here. Linguists, philosophers of language, and epistemologists have long recognized what are called substitution failures of the terms truth and reality, which reveal that these terms aren't interchangeable, and so don't mean the same thing, even though we sometimes use one word loosely as a cognate for the other. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, we can say, "This is a mug," is true or false. But you can't say, "This mug is true or false." That latter sentence doesn't even make sense. It's why you can say of the sentence, "It is morning," that the sentence, is true. But you can never say of the morning that it is true. That is, you cannot say, "The morning is true." You can't substitute these words around. In other words, it would be meaningless to say morning is true, but perfectly meaningful to say the proposition "it is morning" is true. And this is because the word truth is predicable of sentences, of beliefs, of statements, or anything else that expresses a proposition. So propositions, sentences, statements, and beliefs are truth bearers, and so can be true or false. But reality just is. It is what it is. It can't be true or false. Reality under the correspondence theory is that which makes a sentence or belief true or false, when reality is correctly described by a proposition. So the correspondence theory requires that one reject any identification or equivalency between truth and reality. Because under that theory, truth refers to or is about reality. But it isn't itself reality, and so the terms can't be substituted, are not interchangeable that way. Under the correspondence theory of truth, the word truth describes a predicate relationship. It predicates resemblance, or verisimilitude, as they say, between two different things. Reality on the one hand, and propositions expressed as statements, sentences, or beliefs on the other hand. Now, there are theories of truth other than correspondence theory, and some of these reject this distinction that we routinely make between truth and reality. And those theories have to get around the substitution failures that I described earlier, along with explaining away why we make the distinction in the first place in all of our knowledge talk. I leave it to any viewers interested in competing theories of truth to read up on such theories, study the arguments for and against each theory, so as to make up their own mind on this highly technical question. However, if you subscribe to the correspondence theory of truth, as I do, and as presuppositionalists almost invariably do, then one is in no position to equate truth with reality. When presuppositionalists equivocate between truth and reality, when they identify the two terms, when they say they're the same thing, they are abandoning the correspondence theory of truth, which they insist that they hold. If you're a proponent of the correspondence theory of truth, if you think truth is that which corresponds to reality, then you can't use the words truth and reality interchangeably in these discussions. When people do use them interchangeably, they are unwittingly saying that truth is that which corresponds with truth. Or alternatively, that reality is that which corresponds with reality. That just follows if truth and reality are interchangeable. But these are vacuous, empty tautologies. So the correspondence theory of truth requires that truth and reality not have the same meaning and usage. Okay, that's all for now. I hope this helps a bit, and thank you for watching.